You hear that?
Might want to lay off the weed, huh?
And you might want to gargle my ball sack.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. And today, I will be reviewing The Boys Season 3. I want to start this video off by saying that this review will be long. I also wanted to say that these long format reviews are going to be very rare, so don't worry. The next series I will be reviewing will be episode by episode, not the entire season. Anyways, buckle up for a really long review. So because this series is more story driven, I will talk more about the story than the action scenes. I will obviously still talk about the action, but it'll be more story heavy, so there will be heavy spoilers. I would also like to mention that I have not read the comics, and that this review will be all over the place story-wise. I will only be talking about the major plot points of each episode, and they will probably not be in order. I also wanted to point out that each episode that I reviewed was reviewed right after watching the episode, not after watching the whole season. So, without further ado, let's go. Episode 1 picks up a year after the events of the end of Season 2. A lot has changed for the team, and they are now officially under the government. Huey is now in charge of Butcher and his team. What they do is that they find and investigate soups that are criminals. We also learn that Homelander is no longer as influential as he used to be, ever since the events of Season 2. Homelander is a lot more aggressive in this episode than we've seen him, and my prediction is that we will finally see him break in this season. Everybody just seems so scared of him now, and it's going to be interesting to find out who inevitably will stop him, and there are multiple people now that are on that list. We are also introduced to the fact that Starlight will now be co-captain of the Seven. Her and Huey obviously have an argument about it, because in all fairness, it's kind of weird that Starlight was basically an undercover agent, and now she's the face of the Seven, so it's really weird and hypocritical, and that's probably going to be an influential storyline in this season. We learn that Butcher visits Homelander's son often, and that they are forming a very strong relationship. It's nice to see that he is accepting Ryan, the son of Homelander. We also find out that they might have found a way to beat Homelander with a weapon that might have killed Soldier Boy, which I'm pretty sure he has already been confirmed to be alive just because of the trailers. We get some sort of clue as to what the governor is really up to, where she has a friend come up to her telling her something about what they should say about him, and she ends up killing him, and we finally figure out what her powers are. From what I can gather out of it is that whatever she looks at, she can blow up with her mind. For instance, with her fight with this man, she looked at him and his hand blew off. Then she looked at his jaw, and his jaw blew off. So from those scenes, I gather that her powers are that she can blow things up that she can see. We also are introduced to a new version of Compound V that'll give normal humans temporary powers for 24 hours. I find this very interesting, and in my opinion, things can go very wrong with something like this. I also know from the trailers that at some point we will see Butcher take this new version of Compound V, and I'm very interested to see what he does with that kind of power. A lot of people have been speculating that Butcher and Homelander will finally fight each other in this season, but I don't think that's going to happen. The one thought I did have during this episode was the fact that when they bring back Soldier Boy, is Soldier Boy going to be the one who beats up Homelander? The reason why I say this is because apparently they used a weapon to kill Soldier Boy, and it is referenced that Soldier Boy is as powerful as Homelander. So then what I take from it is that we might actually see a fight between these two instead. I would find that really cool, but honestly, I don't think Soldier Boy is going to be the one to kill Homelander. I'm not sure what else to say about this episode, because this episode was more about starting up multiple storylines for the season than anything else. It definitely feels different from the past 2 seasons, and I feel like we're going to get a lot more production value out of this season, and a lot of conflicts are going to reach a head. We also get to see Stormfront again, and I personally don't know why they're keeping her alive, and I have a feeling that she will die in this season, just because her injuries are so horrible. She's still talking about a pure race and all of that, and Homelander is still very uncomfortable with that idea. I almost forgot to mention that in the first 15 minutes of this episode were really funny, and that was kind of disgusting. Honestly, in a funny way, this kind of brings back the meme of Ant-Man crawling up Thanos' butt. So what would I rate episode 1 of The Boys? I would give it an 8 out of 10. There's not a lot of action, and this episode is more to set up the rest of the season than anything else. An 8 out of 10 for me is not a bad rating at all. It's an above average rating. Everything is set up really well for this season, and they give us clear motives and clear ideas on where they're going to go next. So with all of that said, let's get to episode 2. Okay, so episode 2 was really good. So much more happened in this episode than the last episode, and I'm very glad for that. I'll try and go somewhat in order for episode 2, but I make no promises. So in this episode, we are trying to find members of Payback to figure out what happened to Soldier Boy. The first member of the team that we are introduced to is Crimson Countess. She's a weirdo who is obsessed with monkeys, and it's quite funny, but unfortunately she gets away before they can get any information out of her. The other character that we are introduced to is Gunpowder, and he's obsessed with guns, it seems. He wounds Butcher and Butcher must escape, and unfortunately that means we don't get information out of Gunpowder. A-Train is very happy about coming back to the 7, but he wants a change in his personality. He wants to show off his roots as an African American. He pitches an idea of a video game about the slave trade. I personally think that A-Train is going nuts. Homelander also comments and ridicules him for putting on extra weight. I think we're seeing A-Train go through the same stuff as what the Deep went through. We find out that Senator Newman was in a foster home with other children with powers. She was apparently a very troubled case, and they found it very hard to control her. We actually find out that Stan Edgar is the adopted father of Victoria, which is a neat twist. Speaking of Stan Edgar, I have to say, Giancarlo Esposito is really good in this show. Every time he is on the screen, you're glued to the screen, and he's just such an amazing actor. It's really funny because his character is one of the only characters that is not afraid of Homelander. Speaking of Homelander, he kind of loses it in this episode, especially towards the end. In the end of the episode, they were celebrating his birthday publicly, and they were having all these festivities and a special live show. At the very end, Homelander finally has enough and loses it in front of the audience, and says that he really doesn't care, and that he is the hero, nobody else is, and that he is basically God. He quite literally says that you shouldn't care about Christ because I am the true God. I absolutely love the fact that he's going nuts, and I just can't wait to see what he does next. I have to say I called it in my review for episode 1. I said that Stormfront would die in this season, and I didn't expect it, but she died in this episode. And she didn't die in the way I expected. I thought she would die because of her wounds, but nope, she just had enough and ended her own life. It's unfortunate though, because I wanted to see more out of her character, just to see if she was really going to change her ways, which I know wouldn't really work, but I wish we saw more. This was one of the reasons why Homelander just lost it, because he truly has nobody but himself. We also get more of a storyline with MM. We learn that his OCD is getting out of control, and the only way to stop his OCD from getting worse is to go back to his old ways of finding soups. We also learn that he is obsessed with finding Soldier Boy, and I think it's because Soldier Boy was the one that killed his father. We also finally see Butcher get superpowers. which I find pretty awesome. His second run-in with Gunpowder is much more different than the first time they met. This time, Butcher manages to get the information that he needed. Butcher, of course, killed Gunpowder, because Butcher still obviously hates soups, and while having powers, why not? I find it funny and kind of convenient that Butcher's powers are a lot like Homelander's powers, where he's bulletproof and has laser eyes, and what do I assume is super strength. So, what would the rating be for this episode? I would give this episode another 8 out of 10. There's just so much going on in this episode that there is never a dull moment. We definitely saw a lot more gore and violence in this episode, which is a huge plus for me, and the story is still very fluent and makes a lot of sense. I absolutely love the fact that we see Butcher with superpowers, and now, hopefully over time, he can figure out how to use them properly without causing too much collateral damage. I can't wait to see episode 3. Episode 3 was a lot more story driven, and it didn't really have any action at all. So I think at the end of the last episode, Homelander goes on a huge rant on TV. To my surprise, a lot of people actually like that live broadcast, and it actually boosted Homelander's public opinion. This is actually not a good thing, because Homelander is now going to feel even more powerful and is going to do a lot more unexpected things. You could really see Homelander going nuts, because now he is threatening everyone he sees now, and his way or the highway. For instance, they have that TV show where they're choosing the next 2 heroes to be in the 7, and it was originally up to Starlight to choose who would be next on the team. After Homelander tries to persuade Starlight about him choosing the next hero, Starlight threatens him about the video of the plane. In an unexpected twist, Homelander dares Starlight to do it. He explains that if the video is released, then nobody will like him anymore, and that means that he would literally have nothing to lose. He actually threatened her by saying that he would attack the White House, the major cell towers, and destroy New York and many other cities. This convinces me that we will see the fall of Homelander by the end of this season. I thought they would have dragged the storyline on 4 seasons, but it seems like we're going to see the end of it by the end of the season. I don't know how it's going to play out, but hopefully it's a good fight at the end. The other brutal thing is that Homelander made the Deep eat his own friend. It was actually a very brutal scene that actually made me, of all people, uncomfortable. We pick up a bit of the storyline with A-Train, where he went to the doctor, and the doctor told him that there's a chance that if he runs at super speed again, that his heart will explode. We get a little conversation with him and his brother, and A-Train is saying how he wants to make a difference for his people and all that. His brother then gives him a real reason to use his platform as a member of the 7 to point out the racism within the city. A-Train then says that he's more like Michael Jordan rather than Malcolm X, basically saying that he doesn't want to make a real difference, he just wants to look like he's making a difference. We also learn more about the team Payback, and about what's happened so long ago, and the battle where Soldier Boy was allegedly killed. The funny thing about this is that we are given the same story, that the Russians used some kind of weapon against Soldier Boy that killed him, but we are not shown the scene of him dying, and we are just given second-hand accounts. I am still convinced that Soldier Boy is alive, and in fact that the weapons the Russians used just incapacitated him, and they're holding him in a special facility. During this battle, we learn that Payback really wasn't a good team, and that they were overwhelmed easily by the Russians, and that they were very careless. I found it pretty cool that we actually finally found out what Black Noir looks like, or at least the younger version of him. To be quite truthful, I was shocked to hear Black Noir actually speak, and it was very neat to see an actual personality out of him. I have a small feeling that Black Noir will play a role in the end of the season. With Butcher, He is struggling with the side effects of the temporary compound V that he used. I have a small feeling that his powers are actually permanent, because it's been more than 24 hours and he still seems like he has powers. He seems to be very nauseous, and according to the kid Ryan, he has a high heart rate and his blood smells different. They did mention in earlier episodes that this serum is still in its early stages, so I think that Butcher took it assuming that it was just temporary, but in reality, I think it actually gave him permanent power. He is also struggling with the fact that he has laser eyes, because he's having to keep his eyes closed, or else the laser beams will shoot out. Kind of like Cyclops from the X-Men. I also noticed in this episode, and I'm not sure if this was just me, but I noticed when Ryan pushed Butcher, Butcher didn't fall over, and I think the kid knows something. Unfortunately, in the end, after hearing all of this stuff about what happened a long time ago with the team Payback, he says that he'll never trust Mallory ever again, and that he is taking off. Ryan obviously doesn't like this, and he tries to stop Butcher from leaving, but Butcher says that it was Ryan's fault that his mother is dead, and that he never wants to see his face ever again. Ryan understandably gets very angry, and his eyes start to turn red, insinuating that he's about to laser Butcher. Luckily, Ryan comes to his senses and just walks away, claiming that he never wants to see Butcher again and that he hates him. At the very end of the episode, Homelander and Starlight announce the winners of the contest to enter the 7. The winners are Supersonic and the Deep. The Deep was chosen by Homelander, and Starlight is very uncomfortable with that. In an unexpected twist, Homelander then announces that he and Starlight are in love with each other. Obviously, Starlight is very uncomfortable, and honestly, it's kind of scary to see. Starlight is now surrounded by so many people that she's afraid of. Hopefully, Butcher and the boys find this weapon to finally kill Homelander. Now we get to the rating of this episode. I give it a solid 8 out of 10. I give it an 8 out of 10 because the story is pretty good, and the ending was also very well done. And it was an unexpected twist that I didn't see coming. I also like the fact that we get to see Payback in their prime, and get a glimpse of what they were like. I also really like the fact that we get to see Black Noir, and what he really looks like, and what he sounds like, and most importantly, we get more personality out of him. I also like the fact that they're hinting that Butcher has permanent powers now. Hopefully Butcher and Ryan bandage up their relationship, because if this weapon doesn't work against Homelander, Ryan is the only hope to have a chance at stopping Homelander. Now, let's see what happens in episode 4. I don't understand it, but this show keeps on getting better and better each episode. I just don't understand why these writers are so good. Like, where did they get these writers from? I know they're basing it off the comic books, but holy crap, I don't remember the last time I've ever seen a show this good. Without wasting any more time, I should get into this episode because this episode was on a different level. Again, I'm not really going to be going in order, but I will be talking about the best parts. The storyline with A-Train is starting to actually get pretty good now. It seems like now he actually cares about what's happening in his community, and he's looking for ways to stand up for the community. He's now looking to talk to the superhero that has been killing innocent black people. He's doing commercials. For instance, one of the commercials was actually mocking the commercial from years ago featuring Kylie Jenner, and it was just funny how they were mocking that. A-Train just wants to do more with this situation, so he brings it up in a meeting with Homelander. Unfortunately, the Deep says something that makes Homelander just completely toss A-Train's idea out the window. After this, A-Train and the Deep have a little scuffle in the hallway, and they're trying to blackmail each other, and it ends with A-Train being thrown into a wall, and Homelander breaking them up, and helping the Deep instead of A-Train. I know last episode I was kind of making fun of A-Train, but now that he seems genuine about this issue, I actually kind of feel bad for him. but at the end of the episode, I lose all of my respect for him. The last episode ended with the boys saying that they're going to be going to Russia to find this weapon that supposedly killed Soldier Boy. So we have a little field trip to Russia, and wow, a lot of things happened. Right before they go to this lab where this weapon supposedly is, Butcher takes another hit of the Compound V. Earlier in the episode, Huey finds out that Butcher is indeed using Compound V temporarily. Huey agrees not to tell anyone else that Butcher is using this serum. Huey requests to have some for himself, and Butcher says no. We will get more into that later. Butcher and the boys find the lab where they think the supposed weapon is, and they find this mysterious containment. And before they can figure out what's in this container, the security comes in and starts shooting at the boys. The boys have to fend off the security, and everybody starts to run out of ammo. So Butcher takes it into his own hands, and he kills all the soldiers with his laser beams. It was a pretty awesome scene because he actually looked like he was really enjoying it, and it was just satisfying to watch. Huey notices that one of the security guards is going up to one of the other members of the boys, so Huey teleports and takes him out. So we know now that Huey did indeed take Compound V, at least the temporary version of it. I really like the fact that it seems like he doesn't care anymore, and he just wants to end no matter what happens. After all of this happens, Butcher removes the door from the container, and as soon as the smoke clears, we see Soldier Boy. I called it since episode 1 that Soldier Boy would return, and that he actually was not killed. I think the weapon that the Russians used was to just incapacitate him, and used to not actually kill him. The reason why I say this is because it seems like the Russians have done extensive testing on him, and they were basically using him as a lab rat. The reason why I say this is because he has powers that we have not seen him use before. When Soldier Boy leaves this container, he starts trying to find a way out. Then he starts walking towards Frenchie, and Frenchie is trying to explain to Soldier Boy that it's okay. Right before Soldier Boy attacks Frenchie, Kamiko runs in front of him and is taken out by Soldier Boy with a large beam of energy from his chest, kind of like Iron Man. This immediately throws Kamiko through a wall. After Soldier Boy runs off, Frenchie goes up to Kamiko, noticing that she has a piece of metal stuck in her abdomen. Usually this wouldn't be a big deal because she has healing powers, but for some reason, she no longer has healing abilities. At the end of the episode, it's insinuated that Kamiko is going to die, and it's very sad, because Frenchie and Kamiko were planning to leave everything behind after this one mission. I know it's very cliche where the good guy says that this is our last time, and then they die because it was the last time. I feel like this cliche works in this show because we are attached to these characters. So now I will talk about some of the other little bits in this episode that I enjoyed. There is this funny scene where Kamiko was fighting a pervert and his security guards. So to explain the situation, Kamiko had to assassinate this dude because they were given information about this super weapon. But in order to get this information, they needed Kamiko to assassinate this man. In this scene, he opens up a closet and he shows us a bunch of dildos. And this is obviously setting up the fact that he wants to do an orgy. I thought in my head, oh no, she's gonna have to do some nasty things to try and kill him. But no, that doesn't happen, thank God. What happens next is that she literally throws a dildo through his head. Then she starts to kill all the security guards with dildos. It was really funny. In all honesty, she could have just used her hands, but honestly, it was a lot better this way, and it just added some comic relief to the show. Another major plot point in this episode was the fact that Starlight was trying to basically start a coup within Vought. Starlight gets Supersonic, and Supersonic seems to have gotten A-Train involved as well. Among all of them, we also have Maeve. I really like the fact that this is happening, because this is starting to set up the fact that we might see a bunch of our favorite heroes go up against Homelander. I'm kind of scared for that fight as well, because you know some of these heroes are going to have to die. Anyways, this seems to all start panning out very well. But because the show is what it is, of course it didn't last very long. So after A-Train and the Deep have their little brawl, Supersonic calms down A-Train, and he starts talking to A-Train about what they might plan to do against Homelander. It seems like A-Train is fully on board with this, but later on we find out that indeed he is not on board. So we learn at the very end of this episode that A-Train told Homelander about everything. Homelander takes Starlight to a roof, and he shows Starlight the dead body of Supersonic, who was brutally murdered from what I can assume was Homelander. Homelander tells Starlight to follow everything he says, and that if she even blinks the wrong way, that he will kill Huey. Everything seems to be falling apart for everyone now, so hopefully in the next 4 episodes, everybody can band together to fight Homelander. We also get a scene where Victoria Newman betrays her father, Stan Edgar. Stan told Victoria to initiate a press conference, so then they can tell Homelander to calm down and to be more professional. I did not expect Victoria to go up in this press conference and say that Stan Edgar knew everything that was going on, and that Vought needs to be held accountable for their decisions. This was a complete shock, and I have to say that this show is the best at introducing twists. Anyways, for about 10 to 15 minutes during this episode, everybody was wondering why the hell she would say this stuff. Well, towards the end of the episode, we finally found out why she did this. The reason why she did all of this was because she wanted to get Compound V for her daughter. I gotta say, what a piss off. Like, you did all this just so then you can give your daughter some serum? Like, what the hell? I'm assuming what's going on here is that she wants her daughter to have powers so then she can probably brainwash her to be a bad guy. Okay, so what would I rate episode 4 of The Boys? I'm gonna give this a sweet 9 out of 10. The second part of the episode was so good, it's hard to put into words how good it is. We got a mix of everything we got. Action, story, and a good amount of twists. Really can't wait for the next episode, and hopefully we get to see a lot more of Soldier Boy. So this episode was definitely a filler episode, but that's not a problem at all. There's a lot more story to this episode than there was action. This segment of the video probably isn't going to be as long, so let's get into it. So the end of the last episode ended with Kimiko being severely injured, and it was a pretty good cliffhanger, and luckily she does survive her injuries. I'm very happy about this because she is a very good character, and I feel like we could get a lot more out of her story, so I'm happy they didn't kill her off. Speaking of that, we get a lot of confirmation about certain things in this episode, and I think that this episode was more used to answer the most asked questions. For instance, we learned that the Team Payback actually knew about Soldier Boy being kidnapped, and that they actually wanted it to happen. We also get some flashbacks of what the Russians did to Soldier Boy, and they did a lot of experimentation on him. It still hasn't been fully explained as to how he got his new powers. Hopefully we will see more of that either towards the end of this season or next season. Back to Kimiko. So later on in the episode, she wakes up from her coma, and she learns that she has no powers. She's very happy about this, and it's a good callback to the past episodes where she was fed up with her powers and just wanted to be normal in a sense. I feel like this is a good setup for what they'll do with Soldier Boy's character. Anyways, with Kimiko near the end of the episode, she starts to speak, which is very nice to see, but I wasn't sure if that was part of her daydreaming or if that actually happened. The reason why I say that is because right after that she starts to sing, and they have this weird musical type scene, which came out of nowhere and I personally didn't like it. The show has done so many other weird things that I'm honestly not surprised that they did that. After that daydream, she kisses Frenchie, and then he leaves because I think he just needed to collect himself. So I'm going to provide some backstory to what happens next, so that it makes more sense. Last episode we were in Russia, The reason why they were in Russia was because they needed to find a weapon, and the only way to get to Russia was through Frenchie's old friend. For them to get proper information, they needed to do this little job, and they made a deal as well that Frenchie would do the odd job for her. In this episode, we see that happen, and Frenchie is told to kill a man and his daughter. Obviously, he doesn't want to do it because it's a kid that he needs to kill. He had to kill them by the end of the day, or he would face consequences. So after Frenchie got kissed by Kamiko, he goes for coffee to collect his thoughts, but unfortunately, because he did not take out the man and his kid, he was kidnapped. Unfortunately for Kamiko, she does not know this happened, so she thinks that he just left entirely and that she crossed the line. I'm sure it's gonna end up with the cliche by the end of this season that he'll explain everything and all is forgiven, or on a more wild note, he dies, which I don't think they'll do. We are slowly seeing Butcher lose control of his life again. He started to drink, he's getting addicted to this new temporary compound B, and he's just going nuts. Somewhere in the beginning of the episode, Maeve comes to Butcher and gives him more of the compound B, and then they start talking to each other. After some conversation, Maeve kisses Butcher, and Butcher obviously seems very offended by this. Maeve persuades Butcher and they do the naughty, which completely goes against everything Butcher stands for, by the way. Butcher is throwing away all of his morals just to get to Homelander. Speaking of being addicted to Compound V, Huey is now very addicted to it, and he always wants that power. To be honest, I can't really see how his powerful is that helpful, unless it's something like Nightcrawler from the X-Men, where he just saves people by teleporting them to a different location. We don't really see Homelander in this episode, but he doesn't have much of an impact as we would assume that he would have. His scenes were still very good, but we just didn't see as much of him. I think he's still going to go nuts, but now he is in charge of everything at Bot, and he has a lot more responsibility than he originally thought he would have. He now has to worry about how much money they're making, their stocks, and all this promotional stuff that they need to do to make a profit. Homelander grows increasingly suspicious as to what is going on behind his back. He confronts Maeve about his suspicions, and he asks her for a few questions, and it's basically confirmed that he is aware of something going on, but he doesn't know exactly what, and I have a feeling he'll figure it out, but it'll be too late. After their little conversation, Black Noir kidnaps Maeve, and we are not told where she ends up. Everybody is now under Homelander, and everybody is scared of what's going to go down, and that they just want to avoid him, no matter what, because they don't want to die. This is also reaching a boiling point, and I feel like that boiling point is going to reach its limit very soon. We obviously see more of Soldier Boy as well. We see some scenes with him, not a lot, but it's still a significant amount of information that we get out of these scenes. So Soldier Boy escapes Russia, and he ends up in New York, which we all assumed would happen. He gets to New York, and he's shocked by all the changes that have happened since his time. Because back in his time, things like the LGBTQ wasn't very popular, and seeing African Americans wasn't really a thing either. So a lot of things have changed in society since his supposed death. While trying to find his way around New York, he hears Russian music, and that really gets him angry, and he explodes, killing 19 people. So what I gather from this scene is that his powers only seem to work when he gets very angry. So he's kind of like Homelander in a way, where you get them angry enough, and he'll just literally blow up. This makes it seem like he can't control the literal explosive power that he has now. After that is shown all over the news, MM has a flashback of his family dying, and he has a panic attack. Later on in the episode, we find out that Soldier Boy is going to his ex-girlfriend's house, who happens to be Crimson Countess. Now the team knows where Soldier Boy's headed, and they must find a way to get to him. They find out where Crimson Countess is, and they tie her up, and put duct tape over her hands so she can't use her powers. They try to interrogate her and ask her a bunch of questions, but she never answers any of the questions, so they just leave her tied up in the trailer. After this happens, Soldier Boy arrives, and Butcher cuts a deal with him. We get a little scene afterwards with Crimson Countess and Soldier Boy, and this is when we figure out that Payback knew about what was going on, and they did nothing to stop it, and that they weren't even paid any money to do it. And this obviously angers Soldier Boy, and in his anger he causes yet another explosion. Crimson Countess is now dead. In the middle of all of this, MM was not happy about working with Soldier Boy, since Soldier Boy killed his entire family in front of him. MM was against this, so Butcher had no choice but to roofie MM, so then they could recruit Soldier Boy. I'm going to continue on with what happens, but I'm also going to point out something that I did not like, and this is the first time I have an issue with this season. Earlier in the episode, Starlight had told Huey to never take the Compound V again, because it can be very dangerous for him. Later on in the episode, Huey takes it again, but he only takes it because he assumes Starlight wouldn't know, as she would not show up to confront them with Soldier Boy. Starlight does show up, and Huey confronts her, asking her what she is doing there, and he of course tells her that he took the Compound V again. Soon after that, a giant explosion happens, and Starlight and Huey go to the explosion to find out what's going on. Out of the flames came Soldier Boy, and of course Starlight had to be aggressive and try to attack him. Before anything can go down, Huey teleports in front of Starlight and tells her that she should not attack him. This is where my problem arises. After Huey blocks Starlight's attack, Starlight gets all pissy with him and says, "You're going to side with them? And you're going to go through with this?" In my mind, I'm thinking, Homelander is on the verge of destroying everything, and all you can worry about is Huey wanting to take out Homelander? It's bad because it seems like Starlight wants to have Homelander gone, but she doesn't seem to have what it takes to get to that point. She just wants it done. I just don't understand what's going on here. This drama feels so forced. Like, Homelander is about to kill everyone in the world, and all you can worry about is your own relationship? For me, that sounds so selfish, and she is the one who really wanted to find the weapon to kill Homelander, and Soldier Boy is the only weapon to do that. I saw this twist coming, but it was just so disappointing that they have to have this forced drama again. So in this episode, we finally have A-Train speaking to Blue Hawk about what he has been doing in African American neighborhoods. Blue Hawk agrees to make a public apology at a community center. So A-Train brings Blue Hawk to this community center, and he makes a public apology. But it doesn't seem genuine at all, and he doesn't seem like he even wants to be there. The audience in the community center obviously gets mad at him, because he's not being genuine, and he's killed so many people. Then the audience starts chanting Black Lives Matter and stuff like that, and this infuriates Blue Hawk, and he starts beating them up. I think this all but confirms that he is indeed racist. Unfortunately, during this stuff, A-Train's brother is caught in the crossfire and is thrown against a wall. Later on in the episode, he is in the hospital, and A-Train is told that his brother will not walk ever again, and that he is seriously injured. We then see A-Train looking at the news, and Blue Hawk is making up a bunch of stuff, and this infuriates A-Train. I can see it happening where A-Train might kill Blue Hawk, but I'm not sure about that. So what would I rate episode 5? I would give it a 7. I give it a 7 because it was a slower episode that had a lot more story to it. That's not a problem, but I would have liked to see more action. I also didn't like the fact that they have forced drama in this episode. It doesn't really make sense, and it just shows that Starlight is selfish in my opinion. I like the fact that we get to see Soldier Boy, and I like the fact that we have recruited him. I hear rumors that the next episode is going to be very graphic, so let's see what takes place in the next episode. Yet another great episode. There is so much to unpack, so let's get to it. Obviously, the biggest attraction to this episode is Herogasm, and I have to say, it's not as graphic as I thought it was going to be. In all honesty, I'm kind of disappointed in a way. The boy's Twitter account was very active for the week, trying to warn us about how graphic it was going to be, and that we would need to wash our eyes out and stuff like that. But it really didn't live up to the hype. Now, to be clear, this isn't a problem at all. I was just disappointed. In all honesty, I thought the entire episode was going to be about it. But really, it was only like a 15-minute thing. So in this episode, the tension is the highest it's ever been, especially with Homelander. We start off the episode with Homelander finding out that Soldier Boy is indeed alive. Homelander's reaction was very interesting. Usually he's very arrogant and says that there's nothing to worry about, but in this case, he genuinely seemed scared. He may have been more scared of the fact that he was no longer going to be the top hero anymore, and was less scared of the fact that he would lose against him in a fight. After this, Black Noir actually cut out his tracking chip and just left. We have no idea where he is, and I'm sure he'll be playing a big part in the next 2 episodes. We also see MM and Starlight preparing to do something. It seems like MM is trying to go and find Soldier Boy. I honestly don't know what he's trying to prove here. I know that Soldier Boy killed his family, but does he know that Soldier Boy can kill him instantly? Honestly, I think it's just to tell Soldier Boy how much pain that he went through. We get a little bit more of A-Train in this episode, and he is still really mad about Blue Hawk. In the last episode, Blue Hawk went to apologize to a bunch of people in the black community, and they didn't take too kindly to him, and he started doing a lot of racist stuff, and then he started beating everybody up. One of those people that he beat up was A-Train's brother, who is now paralyzed. A-Train goes to Ashley and asks her what they are going to do now, and that he wants to charge him. Ashley starts using corporate speak, and A-Train finally has enough and says that no, he needs to be dealt with. Ashley replies by ripping her hair out, and honestly saying something that should have been said to A-Train a lot earlier. She said that he had killed 3 other people, and that he didn't make a big deal out of it himself, and now suddenly that it's happening to him, he thinks he should be vindicated, and then she told him to F off. I'm very happy that somebody finally said this to him. Anyways, later on in the episode, A-Train finds Blue Hawk and kills him. It was a pretty brutal way that he died, because A-Train literally dragged him at super speed on the ground, obviously killing him, and it's pretty brutal because it's a deadly case of road rash, literally. Earlier on in the season, it was mentioned that if A-Train ran again, he would very likely die from cardiac arrest. Unfortunately for A-Train, after using his powers in this episode, he fell to the ground and passed out, and from what I can assume, he's dead. Honestly, I think this was a good time for his story to end, because his arc is complete in a way. In the first season, he kills Huey's girlfriend, and he obviously doesn't feel any remorse for that. Then he kills his girlfriend, and then he killed somebody else. A-Train went through a lot of pain, and towards the end of his life, he started to realize that there was more to his life, and so he started representing the African American community. In a shocking twist at the end of the episode, Huey's at Herogasm, and he had his powers and noticed that A-Train was there. Huey asked for an apology from A-Train, and surprisingly enough, A-Train actually gave a genuine apology. So really, in the end, he came from an arrogant mindset to now actually feeling remorse for what he has done. We also see more of Kamiko, and she does learn of where Frenchie is. And unfortunately, Frenchie was being tortured by the Russians and little Nina. Kamiko and Sherry were both tied to chairs, and Frenchie was told to make a decision to either save Kamiko or Sherry. Before the decision could be made, Kamiko breaks free and tries to beat up one of the Russians, but the Russians severely beat her. But in the end, her and Sherry prevail. I was so sure that Frenchie was going to die in this scene, but luckily he did not. We see a lot more of a Soldier Boy in this episode, and I gotta say he's one of my new favorite characters. Yes, he has done some horrible stuff, but at the same time, there's just something about him where he has the I don't give a crap feel to him. Soldier Boy agrees to kill Homelander, but first the boys need to find the remaining members of Payback. While Butcher went looking for some information, Huey was in charge of looking after Soldier Boy. We learn more about what Soldier Boy is like and his thoughts about the current world. We actually get a funny scene where he talks about Bill Cosby, saying that he used to be the dad of America and that he made really good drinks. I just found that joke really funny. We also get this very well acted scene with just Homelander. Homelander was basically talking to the evil side of him in the mirror. We see a lot of interesting emotions come from Homelander. We actually see him cry for the first time. The evil version of himself forced Homelander to say that he just wants to be loved, and that every time he falls in love with somebody, they always either die or he ruins it, and he basically hits a brick wall every time. The evil side of him basically tells him that you need to get rid of the good side of you and just be evil. It was so well acted. So I'm going to mention one of my problems with this episode before I get into the really good part of this episode. This is the same complaint I had in the last episode, and that's the fact that Starlight doesn't seem to know the gravity of the situation. Somebody on the internet put it well, saying that she wants Homelander dead, but she doesn't have what it takes to get to that point. What this means is the fact that in order to kill Homelander, you have to do certain things to get to that point. She absolutely hates the fact that Soldier Boy is involved, but in my opinion, Soldier Boy is literally the only hope that they have for killing Homelander. I understand that she's afraid that Soldier Boy is going to become the new Homelander, but there's always a chance he won't, and it would also be the fact that Homelander will be dead. Also, Starlight seems to be mad at Huey for having superpowers now. In all honesty, this feels like forced drama, and she's just making dumb decisions in my opinion. To be fair to her though, not all of her decisions are bad decisions. Two of the decisions that she made in this episode were actually very good decisions. So earlier on in the episode, Victoria Newman came to talk to Starlight, and she basically said to Starlight that she knew that Starlight knew who Newman was, and that she was going to offer Starlight a deal. The deal was that Starlight would take advantage of her following so that she could boost Senator Newman's numbers. In exchange, Starlight would finally get her position as the leader of the Seven, and that she would have protection against Homelander. Starlight says no. She explains that she is tired of everybody playing dirty and that she wants to earn her position and to not play dirty. I really respect Starlight. Starlight knew full well that Newman would likely pop her head, but Newman didn't, and for Starlight to stand up to her, that is really respectable. The other good decision made by Starlight was at the very end of the episode. At the end of the episode, she named specific people within the Seven who have done her wrong, and she throws this scene aftermath of Soldier Boy blowing up the area where Herogasm was being held, and she showed all of the dead bodies. She did this knowing full well that Vought and Homelander would be right up her ass, and I say good for her for ratting them out. Anyways, we learn where two members of Payback are, and they just so happen to be the hosts of Herogasm. So we traveled to Herogasm. We see a bunch of crazy sex acts. Soldier Boy arrives to try and find the two members. Soldier Boy comes across MM, and he throws Holothane at Soldier Boy to try and knock him out. And this absolute Chad just breathes in the Holothane and breathes it out like smoke. So this makes it seem like he's immune to poison. After this, Soldier Boy finds the two members and basically kills them out of pure anger and blows up the whole house. This is where it gets incredible. After this happens, Homelander shows up, and this is where the epic fight scene happens. I wanted to mention a few things about this fight, besides the fact that this was one of the best fights I've seen in a while. So a lot of people on the internet have been debating about this fight scene and whether or not Homelander was winning the fight or not. And in my opinion, he was, at first. No, he wasn't winning per se, but he was holding his own. What I mean by this is that he wasn't being brutally beaten, but there were a couple of good hits against him. I hate to admit it, but if no one else was there, I think Homelander could have killed Soldier Boy. But that's not how this fight went. What happened in the fight was that Homelander was winning, and then Butcher came along, and that's when the tide started to turn. It was even harder for Homelander to fight them when Huey came along, and this meant that all three of them were fighting Homelander, and it was at this point that Homelander was losing. Unfortunately, like the coward he is, Homelander flew away. Anyways, this would come down to the fact that if three of them can fight him and take him down, then if there are even more heroes, I think Homelander will definitely lose. I really can't wait for the next episode to see what happens. So what would I rate this episode? I think I would rate it a 9 out of 10, just because of the fight scene. I'm not saying that the rest of the episode was bad. No, not at all. I think it was really well done, but it was just that the fight scene is unforgettable. I really hope we see Homelander break in the next episode, and I think he will. The reason why I say that is because there are only 2 episodes left, and Homelander is already threatening to destroy half of the United States. What I think now is going to happen is that Homelander is going to know that his time is almost at an end, and that he will really just do whatever he wants until he does lose, and I am here for it. Yet another great episode. This episode was a lot more story driven, and we got a lot of answers from this episode. I think for me, the 2 biggest plot lines in this episode were Black Noir and Butcher. So with Black Noir, we had more of his story and what he's all about. We get to see a perspective of the world from his eyes, and it's a very interesting way he looks at the world. We learn that he has a lot of imaginary friends that are basically cartoon characters, kind of like the Looney Tunes. Basically, it seems like these imaginary friends are his emotional support that gets him through the tough times. This is how we finally learned what happened to him. Apparently, Soldier Boy was quite a bully against the team Payback, especially against Black Noir. We get a flashback of what happened to Black Noir in the form of animation, and even with the animation, it was still quite a brutal scene. We learned that Black Noir was up for a new film, and he really wanted to be in that film, but Soldier Boy started spreading misinformation about Black Noir that made him lose the role. Black Noir was very frustrated with Soldier Boy, and Soldier Boy beat him up. It was pretty sad, to be honest, because Black Noir always wanted to be in a movie, from what it seemed like, and Soldier Boy just crushed his dreams. And then to be beaten up right after that is kind of messed up. Apparently Soldier Boy was like this with every member of Payback, and this is when we learned what happened to Soldier Boy that made him presumed dead. We learned that Payback set up an ambush against Soldier Boy, and it was all of them fighting him, and unfortunately, Black Noir got brutally beaten by Soldier Boy. Soldier Boy beats Black Noir so bad that part of Black Noir's brain was actually beaten out of his skull, which explains why Black Noir doesn't talk, and what seems to be now mentally challenged. It is so crazy how we got so little Black Noir in the past couple of seasons, and just in a matter of 1 episode, we came from barely knowing anything about him to being one of the most beloved characters of the show. To me, that is such good writing, and we could not know anything about somebody to caring about them more than some of the other characters in the span of an hour. We also see a lot more of Butcher's past in this episode, and I don't know what's worse, Butcher's past or Black Noir's past. As we know, Butcher had a little brother named Lenny, and that it was a touchy subject, and then in this episode, we learn why. I'll get into the reason why we see a bunch of flashbacks to Butcher's past later. As we know, His father was not the best to people, and we see that in full scale in this episode. We see the present Butcher looking back on his memories of him and his brother. The flashback starts off with Butcher and Lenny in their bedroom when they were younger, and the father came home and Butcher put Lenny in the closet to protect him from his father, and Butcher took the beating for Lenny. It's insinuated that Butcher would always take the beatings instead because he was trying to protect his little brother. We see some scenes where Butcher's father tells both of them to man up and be better, which is kind of ironic coming from him. Then we get to a point where Butcher leaves because he feels that if he is not around, then the father will not be as aggressive towards Lenny. Butcher ends up leaving for the military, and he promised Lenny that he would visit as much as possible, but unfortunately Butcher never returned. We then see a pretty brutal scene where the kid version of Lenny starts speaking to Butcher, talking about how much Butcher should have been there for him, and Butcher was seeming very unforgiving of himself, and then we see Lenny unfortunately take his life. This episode just shows us so much backstory of some of the characters, and it just works so well to the point where we now really do care about these characters. On to lighter subjects in this episode. So Soldier Boy goes after the next member of Payback, and his name is Mindstorm. Soldier Boy brings along Huey and Butcher on this little adventure. Mindstorm's powers are that he could trap people in an endless nightmare until they die of dehydration. At least that's what it said in the show. And this is how Butcher ends up in that nightmare sequence, because he looked into Mindstorm's eyes. Soldier Boy is about to kill Mindstorm, and Huey teleports Mindstorm somewhere else. He pleads with Mindstorm to get Butcher out of his nightmare, and after some persuading, Mindstorm finally agrees. Soldier Boy then comes along and beats up Mindstorm. Mindstorm then says something that we are not told, and Soldier Boy basically beats Mindstorm's skull in. We also get more of a storyline with Kamiko. After the fight scene of last episode where Kamiko was beaten up because she wanted to save Frenchie, Kamiko now wants to have her powers back. Frenchie has a hard time accepting the fact that Kamiko wants her powers back, but Kamiko explains to Frenchie that she wants to protect her family, and that she views Frenchie as her family, and that she hated the fact that she was not able to protect him when he needed it most. To be honest, that's a really good excuse to want to have powers back. So Frenchie ends up agreeing because in the end, it is her choice. So by the end of the episode, Kamiko has her powers back. In the middle of all of this, Starlight was the one to get Compound V for Kamiko. While in the science lab, where the Compound V is being stored, she looks over some files. She sees a case file about the temporary V, and it has some shocking revelations that after 3 to 5 doses, it would kill the participants. Obviously, this is bad news for Butcher, as well as Huey. In a panic, Starlight calls Butcher and tells Butcher that he needs to tell Huey about this or else he could die. In a disappointing turn of events, Butcher does not end up telling Huey this, and in fact, tells Huey that he should continue to use it. It's just really disappointing that Butcher did not tell Huey, especially after seeing all of his flashbacks, and him seeing all that he should realize that he's going to be making the same mistake again, but with Huey. So we get a lot of Homelander in this episode, and surprisingly enough, he still hasn't fully snapped. So one of the first things we get with him is when Starlight is in the Vought Tower. They bump into each other, and he tries to intimidate Starlight by telling her that she should retract her statements and apologize. Starlight stands up for herself and says, "No, I will not be doing that." And then she reveals that she is on Instagram Live. This basically means that Homelander accidentally outed himself. So now there's even more evidence that Homelander really isn't what he says he is in the public eye. Then we go to where Homelander has a little speech somewhere for a politician rally. He's supposed to make a speech about how good the politician is, but he ends up ranting about Starlight for the entire thing. We then see in the crowd an illusion of Soldier Boy, and Homelander is about to ignite his laser eyes before Soldier Boy disappears. So this is confirmation that Homelander is indeed afraid of Soldier Boy. It's kind of crazy to think that Homelander is now scared. Anyways, after this we get a really weird scene of Homelander milking a cow and getting off on it. In the middle of him drinking the cow's milk, Senator Newman comes in, and obviously Homelander is embarrassed, but they don't really talk about it. She says to Homelander that he needed to stop ranting about Starlight and to move on and think about the bigger things. And then she starts getting very condescending and snippy with Homelander, in which Homelander grabs her by the throat, almost killing her. She calms down the situation, and they move on. We learn that Maeve is in fact still alive. I got a problem with this though. Not the fact that she's alive, but the fact that they spoiled it in the promo for this episode, like a couple of days before the episode was released. I really wish they didn't do that, because everybody did genuinely think that she was dead, but we all knew that she wasn't because of that promo. I don't know why they did that, but hey, it's too late now. Anyways, we learned that she's alive, and a lot of us were probably confused as to why she was still alive. Apparently, Homelander is harvesting her eggs, which is really creepy. He's doing this because apparently, if he does ever kill her, then he'll just make another one of her, which is really sadistic. We learn that A-Train is not dead. I like his character, but in all honesty, they should have kept him dead, because his story arc was perfect, and they didn't have to continue his story, but here we are. We learned that he got a heart transplant, but unfortunately he got the heart of Blue Hawk, which I'm sure A-Train is not happy about. Supposedly he lost his memory, but Ashley fed him a bunch of lies, saying that Soldier Boy killed Blue Hawk, and tried to fight A-Train, and all of that bullcrap. I have a small suspicion that A-Train knows that's a complete lie, so hopefully he will figure that out soon. The last big cliffhanger of the episode is the fact that Soldier Boy is in fact Homelander's father. This brings up an interesting dynamic in the whole show now. Soldier Boy was originally going to be used to kill Homelander, but now that Soldier Boy knows this information, are they now going to team up? So how would I rate this episode? I'm going to give it a good 9 out of 10. Honestly, it's just so hard to rate these episodes now, because they keep on getting better and better. So now the whole season is just going to be the same rating. So many great things about this episode. We get more of a backstory to Butcher, we learn a lot more about Black Noir, and the fact that Soldier Boy is in fact a piece of crap. We also learned that Compound V is slowly killing people. The next episode is the season finale, so a lot of things are probably going to be very weird and awesome at the same time, and I cannot wait. Well, that was quite an episode. So many things happened in this episode. So we get more of the A-Train storyline, and he goes to see his brother, who has now been paralyzed from the waist down. A-Train comes back, and he has a cane, and he seems to be doing a lot better. He talked to his brother, and he says that he wants his brother to train him again, so then he can start running really fast. The brother rightfully is very angry at A-Train, and he asked A-Train if he killed Blue Hawk. The brother finds out that A-Train did indeed kill Blue Hawk, and the brother gets very angry, and says to him that he wanted his children to see that racist mugshot on the news, but instead A-Train decided to kill him. I feel very conflicted with A-Train. On one hand, he's a piece of garbage that only cares about himself, but on the other hand, he seems like he's now genuinely trying to help, but nobody will accept that help. Hopefully next season A-Train will have more of a solid thought on whether or not he's a good person. We probably have the saddest moment of this episode. Unfortunately, Black Noir is killed by Homelander. It really sucks that Black Noir died, because he was so close to finally facing Soldier Boy. And then just to be killed so easily by Homelander is so defeating. It's especially bad because we came to care so much about Black Noir. And right before he was about to finally reach that point, and we went through all of that just to see him killed. The reason why Homelander killed Black Noir was because Black Noir did not tell Homelander that he knew that Soldier Boy was his father. I really felt bad, and it was a really big gut punch when his little animated friends were very sad that he was dying. It's just really too bad that he had to die. Another little thing was the fact that I mentioned in the review for the last episode that I was disappointed in Butcher for not telling Huey about the fact that the temporary V kills people. In this episode though, before Huey is about to take it, Butcher knocks him out so that he cannot take the temporary V. And in a sadistic way, that's very good for him to do. We also have a little scene where it seems like Soldier Boy is doubting whether or not he should kill Homelander. And this adds extra tension to the episode, because when the final showdown does come, we don't know what Soldier Boy will do. We also see the fact that Homelander really does not care for the Seven anymore. After killing Black Noir, he has a meeting with A-Train, The Deep, and Ashley. Homelander basically tells all of them how worthless they are, and that he doesn't need them anymore. We also get hints of Ashley ripping out her hair, and the fact that she's also losing hair because she is just so stretched out. A fun little fact for you is that this can actually happen if you're under so much stress that you can actually lose hair. Anyways, Homelander tells Ashley to remove her wig, and apparently she has a wig. When she takes her wig off, she practically has no hair, and it just shows how much stress she truly is under. Homelander also whispers in the Deep's ear and tells him something, but we don't know what he said until later on in the episode. What Homelander said was to kill the runner-up for Vice President of the United States, which is the reason why the Deep said, after he heard what Homelander said, that's treason. The reason why they wanted to kill the runner-up was so Senator Newman could put her name in to enter the race for the United States Vice President. Considering what we all know that she can do, this is a very, very scary situation. Now we're at the final showdown that we have all been waiting for basically 3 seasons now. I got to say, this was a pretty good fight scene, because there's basically 4 people fighting each other. So we have Maeve versus Homelander, and Butcher and Starlight versus Soldier Boy. I honestly like the fight between Maeve and Homelander, and I'll tell you why. It was less of the physical confrontation and more of the emotional aspect of it. Maeve has seen most of the atrocities that Homelander has committed, meaning that she witnessed him blatantly leave a plane full of people begging for them to be saved. She's also seen him go on crazy rants, and has always known that he is a whack job. This fight was basically her taking all that anger out on him, and it was really satisfying to watch. To be honest, I'm actually quite surprised how well she held her own against Homelander. Then we have the fight between Butcher and Soldier Boy. This was a pretty good twist, and I'll tell you why Butcher and Soldier Boy started fighting. So the scene starts where Maeve, Butcher, and Soldier Boy enter the room and start to gang up on Homelander. In a twist of events, Homelander brings out Ryan to try and basically persuade Soldier Boy to their side. Soldier Boy grabs Homelander by the neck, and this angers Ryan, to the point where Ryan shoots Soldier Boy with his laser eyes. What happens next is that Soldier Boy hits Ryan with all his strength with his shield into the wall, seriously injuring Ryan. This obviously enrages Butcher, which is why Butcher starts to fight Soldier Boy. Back to the fight scene with Maeve and Homelander. It was pretty insane to see Homelander basically get beaten up, and he gets a bloody nose. The other brutal part was the fact that Maeve shoved something into Homelander's ear with a lot of force. We also get to a point in the fight where Maeve actually loses an eye, because Homelander stuck his thumb into her eye, squeezing with all of his force. Soldier Boy ends up winning the fight against Butcher and knocks Butcher out. Starlight then tries to fight Soldier Boy, but she does not have enough power. Huey then comes to save the day, and he literally turns up the power in the room that they are in which is the broadcasting room, so that means they have a lot of lights. Huey turns up the lights, and this means there is more electricity, and that means that Starlight can use her full power to basically knock down Soldier Boy. Before they can use the Vapor on Soldier Boy tries to use his explosive power. Before he can do that, Maeve tackles Soldier Boy and they go flying out the window, and he blows up. Maeve unfortunately loses her powers, and we are to assume that Soldier Boy is dead, but actually later on we learn that he is indeed alive. We also learn that Butcher has about 12 to 18 months to live, because he took too much Temp V. Hopefully this becomes a big plot point for Season 4. MM tells his kid about their history, and to always remember that grandfather is the real hero, unlike somebody like Homelander. So we get to the final scene, and this scene is amazing. So there is this rally for Homelander, and Homelander obviously takes advantage of this situation and shows up. He takes this time to inform his fans and supporters that he has a son. While this is happening, a person who does not agree with Homelander, as well as their ideologies, throws some sort of pop can at Homelander. Homelander does not take too kindly to this, and lasers his head off in front of hundreds of people. There was a short spout of silence before the crowd started to cheer for Homelander. Then the camera slowly pans into Ryan's face, where you can see a small smirk. And that's when the episode ends. My jaw dropped at the end of that. The reason why this made my jaw drop was because of the implication of what this means. This means that if anybody opposes Homelander, Homelander will not hesitate to literally kill you. This whole thing where Ryan is now on Homelander's side could be a very good storyline for the next season. I think what's going to happen, and I'm not really good at predicting things, but this is my prediction. The next season we're going to see Homelander teach Ryan how to use his powers and what to do with his powers. And then Homelander is going to do something so insane that even Ryan doesn't like it. And then Ryan will kill Homelander. So that was a lot to unpack for this episode. I found this episode really good. There were some parts where I thought that this episode would turn me off for some of the decisions I thought they were going to make, but then they ended up not doing that, which made me very happy. They perfectly set up the next season, whereas last season it was one of those things where you really didn't know if they were going to have another season or not. The way they set up the next season was perfect. So what would I rate this episode? I think I would rate this a 9 out of 10. There were so many great things about this episode, and just to see Homelander take Ryan under his arm to basically teach him how to be a superhero, or whatever you would call this maniac. I honestly really do think that Season 4 is the final season, because where else could they go after Season 4? At that point they would ironically just be milking the show. I'll now give my thoughts about the entire season. Overall, this was the best season yet. It had so many twists and turns, and every episode somehow got better and better. With Homelander constantly on the edge of losing it, and people dying out of nowhere, this was just all around amazing. I will tell you right now, I have not seen a single TV series be as good as The Boys, besides Invincible. I will watch this show until the bitter end. I cannot wait to see what they do next season. So that's the end of my review for The Boys Season 3. So what would I rate Season 3 of The Boys? As a whole, I would rate this an 8 out of 10. I'm averaging my score, so that is why I came to an 8 out of 10. Each episode got better and better, and yeah, there were some things I didn't enjoy, and that's the only thing I didn't enjoy, was the fact that Starlight really didn't want to do what it took to kill Homelander. Otherwise, this season was great, and I really liked the introduction of Soldier Boy, and oh my god, he's one of my new characters. Before anyone says it, obviously I don't agree with what he believes in, but he's just such an arrogant jerk that doesn't care, and I really like that. Thank you all so much for watching this very long review. I promise I won't have a review this long again, unless something is really bad. Next time I'm just going to review episode by episode and release a video per review instead of doing this long form thing. Thank you all so much for watching, and see you in the next review.